Hello and welcome to the Mad Knitting YouTube channel. My name is Susan. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am coming to you from Madison, Wisconsin, where I work and live with my family. It is Sunday, April the 23rd, and normally I don't make videos on the weekends, but I find myself unexpectedly with some time alone in the house. I have decided to ignore all the things that I could or should be doing. And I thought I would just film this while I've got a little bit of daylight left. So here I am. This is episode 38, and this is going to be, is it episode 38? It's either 38 or 39. Oh, I'm kind of blanking now. Anyway, this is going to be a normal one where I just talk about the stuff that I'm working on. The last video I put up last week was a stash flash. I showed some yarns that I have gotten at local festivals and farmers markets and talked a lot about the parallels I see between local food and what do you call it, like sheep to skein or farm to sweater kind of practices, and at least 2 of you left comments saying that you thought was interesting. So I'm going to call that a win. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, I feel like I have been going balls to the wall nonstop for weeks now, and I haven't really had a break. I work during the week. I've had some gigs. My kids have stuff going on. It's just been like one thing after another. And sorry to say, my work life is going to be getting more stressful here coming up in the next few weeks, which, you know, I'll deal with that as it comes, but that's not going to improve. I am, however, getting the gigs kind of ticked off one by one. So I had something last night. I had 2 things last week. I've had travel for work too. So at least that part of life is slowly kind of coming back into control. Anyway, I don't have any finished objects to show you, unfortunately. I know that it's been a while, like 3 weeks at least since I last made a video. And there was one thing that I thought I was gonna get done, but I made a big mistake and had to fix it. So it's still a work in progress. So let's start with that, shall we? I've showed this before, this work in progress, and it's a fairly simple thing. I often, by the way, I got these baskets like from Target. I have several of these this size, and this is what I put my projects in for just carrying around the house. I find it a lot easier to deal with than bags, just because it's flat bottom and I can see what's in there. Anyway, I started this pair of socks for my dad. I think maybe the first one was not done when I showed this on my last video. And it's done except for hiding the ends. So this is just a basic sock. I did not use a pattern. I just, did my usual thing. I added stripes on the cuff. I was totally going off of an idea I got from Sarah Shira, who is one of the hosts of the Imagine Landscapes podcast. She was using Knit Pick Stroll Tweed, which is the yarn I am using. And she wanted to make like work socks for her whole family, basically. So taking a dark color and using a lighter color for contrast stripes and such, and making kind of work style socks. So this is the label for Stroll Tweed. The main color I'm using is Reindeer Heather. This sort of dark cream color for the contrast is called Oyster Heather. And the first sock went just swimmingly. I really like how it's turning out, or how it turned out. And it's basic cuff down or cuff to toe. It's how I do all my socks. I have talked about this many times before. I think if I did it again, if I make another pair like this, I will probably move the stripes so that they're more centered on the cuff. I knit at least an inch of this dark brown before striping in the cream, and then I wanted to end the ribbing before, you know, before it would have been totally symmetrical. Like if I'd made this totally symmetrical, I would have had ribbing at least down to here. And right now it only goes down to about here. I still think it looks good. It's just, you know, if I was going to be a total anal retentive perfectionist about it, that's what I would have done. So anyway, this turned out fine. And I cast on a second sock and I was going gangbusters on it. And I really thought that I was going to have it done in time to mail to my dad for his birthday, which is today. And I was on the toe decreases of the second sock when I realized something seemed off about the stitch count. So then I held up that second sock, like I put it on top of this one, and I realized they're completely different sizes. I had just cast on fewer stitches for that second sock than I did for the first one. There was no salvaging it, nothing I could do. I had to rip it out all the way back. And all of this happened, by the way, when I was on a work trip and I had not brought my full skein of oyster heather with me. All I had was the brown yarn because I thought that I was done with this. This is what I pulled out from the stripes of that second sock. And because I had cast on fewer stitches, this was not going to be enough for the stripes for the correct number of stitches, unless I altered the stripes somehow. It was a whole thing, and it was very frustrating. My dad still doesn't know that I was planning on giving him socks. He'll just get them late, and I think that's okay. But I got started anyway, and I made a lot of progress over the last couple of days. In fact, I was just at a concert this afternoon and knit from about here through, I'm almost done with the heel flap. The next step is to pick up stitches for the gusset. And it's, I know the yarn's really dark and the light is not showing up very well, but it's dark brown tweed yarn, plain stockinette, and I'm doing an Eye of Partridge heel, which is what I always do. So anyway, the concert I went to, by the way, was the Madison Bach Musicians. They're a group that's been around since 2004, because they announced at the end that next year is their 20th anniversary, so they'll be doing a whole big thing in celebration of that. And I'm friends with a few of the people that are in that group, so at the last minute I decided to go, and it was a fantastic concert. It was all Mozart chamber pieces. They had a guest clarinetist, and they did the Kegelstadt trio, and they also did the clarinet quintet. And that, I mean, that piece, it's one of my favorite pieces, that quintet. It is just gorgeous. So anyway, the way I keep myself from fidgeting in events like that when I'm sitting through a 2-hour chamber concert is that I knit a sock. So I made some progress on that sock. Okay, that's my first work in progress. My second work in progress, this is also something I have showed here before. I've been real stop and start with this one because there's no urgent reason to finish it, and it's a hat that's going to be very warm, so on top of not needing to finish it for any particular person soon, also ostensibly the weather is going to be warming up, so I don't need a warm hat, although it was snowing yesterday and it still isn't very warm here because it's Wisconsin in April, and that's just how it goes. But anyway, I don't have a reason to finish this quickly, but I keep it next to my work computer, so if I'm in a meeting, I pick it up because all I have to do is go round and round. This is a Polka Polka hat, and it's a little bit of an awkward stage. So the yarn I am using for the outside layer, for the fingering weight layer, is Mountain Colors Barefoot. You can no longer get this, but it's sock yarn that has a little bit of mohair in it. So it's a little bit extra warm and fuzzy. And the way it's striping out in the hat, there are these sort of streaks of bright blue with this showing up against this dark navy, almost black. And again, the light is terrible. I wonder if I should turn on a light in here. Let me do that. Yeah, I think the stuff is showing up better. So I know it's a little more yellowed out now, but you should be able to see what I'm showing you better. Anyway, I really, really like the color here. I forget what the name of the colorway is, but it reminds me of a night sky. It seems very celestial. And I reached a point where I realized I was going to have to measure and see if it was ready for the decreases, and I didn't want to mess with that. I must have had a long meeting coming up or something. So I just picked up the mohair silk to use for the liner and picked up all the stitches around the bottom. Normally you would do a provisional cast on for this, but I didn't because I think I was in a hurry. So I just picked up stitches from the cast on edge, and it's fine. It's maybe not quite as smooth as if it were a provisional cast on, but it's not enough that I mind, not enough to matter. Plus this is really dark yarn, so I feel like between the very dark color and the fact that the lining is really fuzzy, I just don't think you're gonna see it. For the lining, I am using Knit Picks Aloft in black. They had a sale on this not too long ago, and I just picked up a couple of skeins so that I could use it for stuff like this. I had thought about looking through to see if I had like a bright color that would be a cool contrast with this, but in the end I decided that what I really wanted was a black liner. So I think it's going to end up being a really sophisticated looking hat. This is either the 4th or 5th polka hat that I am making, and it's probably not going to be the last. I just really like that pattern. I really like how warm and light that double layer is. So anyway, at some point I should measure this and go ahead and finish the decreases at the top and just be done with this half of it, because my yarn kind of gets tangled if I'm not paying attention. So it would be nice to be done with the outside layer. So that's the second work in progress. I have 2 more to show you. The third work in progress is a sock that I cast on during my work trip. I had a couple of nights in a hotel by myself, which is lovely because it means I can just introvert all I need to at the end of meeting with people and all that stuff. So when I was all frustrated with the tweed sock, I just decided to cast on a fresh sock, and I came prepared. I actually brought 3 projects along, so I'm going to show you the other one that I didn't even start. Anyway, this is another skein of, I actually have a label this time, About Berlin Yak Color Black. I think Color Block. I think this is Alana Grossa yarn. Yes, it says right there on the label. And the color name is just a number, 631, which doesn't really tell you anything, but I made another pair of socks out of a slightly different colorway, and I'm just really enjoying this. It's very muted and very earthy. Almost pastel, but a little sort of too dusky and earthy for me to think of as pastel. And this is what it looks like so far. Maybe I should show you this way. So I have, again, no pattern. I'm just knitting cuff to toe. It's mostly stockinette, just with a 2x2 rib cuff. And I will probably do a short row heel for these socks as I did for the last pair, just because that interrupts this striping sequence less than if I did a heel and gusset, like a heel flap and gusset. These are very tall stripes, almost tall enough to count as color blocking, hence the name. At least I assume that's how they got the name. And it's very pleasant yarn to knit with, and I enjoy the color changes, and these are intended as a gift. My last pair, I cast on 64 stitches and they fit me perfectly, but the person I have in mind for these socks, their feet are just a little bigger than mine, so I cast on 68 stitches. And that's basically all I have to say about this. I hope to have these done soon. I don't like when plain socks linger for just too long because I kind of get bored with them sometimes. I occasionally reach a point where I'm like saturated with sock knitting, and yeah, I don't want that to happen. I just want to have these done and out the door. So I'm going to show you just quickly. I don't normally show projects that I have coming up because I'm always changing my mind. But I just thought I would bring along the other project I had thought about casting on during this work trip, because I was only gone for 2 nights and I was working. So even though I didn't have to work in the evening, like the rest of the time I was busy with stuff. So somehow I thought that 3 projects was an appropriate number for 2 evenings, which, you know, looking back is probably a little excessive. But I've been trying to figure out, I've got this yarn. This is Barocco Ultra Alpaca. It's this beautiful heathery lavender color. And this is from the sweater that I sort of collaborated with to make for my mom. So if you've been watching my channel for a while, in January and through part of February, I was working on a sweater for her. She had started it, was getting frustrated with it, asked me to knit it for her. So I did the body for her. She did the sleeves and sewed it in, and it came out really, really beautiful. In the meanwhile, she just handed me all of the yarn and the pattern and the part of the sweater that she had already knit. And she had made a number of mistakes and was frustrated and didn't rip it out, just like gave me the whole thing. There was enough yarn that I started over with, like, without ripping out what was already there. I just set it aside and used the fresh yarn to knit her sweater. And part of the reason was that what she had already worked on, she had ripped out and reknit several times to the point where the yarn was starting to look worn, like worn and fuzzy. And if you look at this, I mean, I know you don't have something to compare it to, but even for an alpaca blend, this is a little fuzzier than you would expect. I don't know if it's showing up, but you can kind of see a halo here. That's from how much this yarn has been knit and ripped back and knit again. So when it was all done and I sent it to her and she put the sleeves in and declared it done and perfect, I did then, as I was sort of cleaning up and putting away all the supplies, I went ahead and I pulled, and she didn't want the yarn back, she didn't want the extra. So I went ahead and I pulled out the portion of the sweater she had knit that we didn't use, and I wound it up into cakes. So you can see this is like a whole ball, and this is, I think this is more than half. I would have to weigh it and see, but there's quite a bit here. But the thing is, it's so fuzzy, I'm not sure that I would use it in just any project because it's already kind of worn. So, you know, I just like put it away and kind of had it in the back of my mind, like, you know, I don't want to toss this because it's still nice yarn. You know, there weren't any breaks or anything. It's just a little worn. But I got to thinking that maybe what I could do with it is combine it with a mohair silk blend, because y'all know I have joined that party and I'm not going home, as I've said before. I really like the fabric created with holding a fuzzy yarn along with another yarn. I find it very warm and light and soft and comfortable. So I got the bright idea that maybe what I could do is just hold this other yarn that's already fuzzy, like a mohair silk blend, and then it won't really matter that this is kind of worn out because it'll all just be part of that sort of hairy, fuzzy aesthetic. Are you tired of me saying fuzzy? I'm tired of saying fuzzy. Anyway, so when I picked up those skeins, the black Aloft yarn from a Knit Pick sale to use in that hat I just showed you, I went ahead and got a skein of this purple, which I think is, there's just a color number here and I can't remember. It might be called Royal or something like that, or Eggplant. I don't remember. Anyway, it's purple. It's like a darker purple than the lavender, but I think they go really, really well together. So my plan is just to make a pair of mittens, plain mittens using the Tin Can Knits pattern, the world's simplest mittens. I have made this pattern a few times in different sizes, and it's great because they give you several sizes from kid through adult and several gauges. And so you can just sort of, you know, even if your gauge hits in the middle somewhere, you just figure out what your stitch count is going to be and follow the directions for that. It's a very useful pattern that way. So I don't even think I'm going to gauge swatch. I think I'm just going to cast on with like size 7 needles because I want a dense, firm fabric, and go from there. And we'll see how well that works. I obviously have plenty of this. This would probably make a couple of pairs. We'll see. We shall see. And it's falling all over the floor. So that's an upcoming idea I have. I like the idea of using up the yarn that's left over from a project. I often have a lot left over. I sometimes tend to overbuy or overestimate how much I'm going to need because I really don't like running out. But then that means I have quite a lot of yarn, you know, little bits of this and that piled up that I don't always know what to do with. So I'm kind of excited to try this and see how it works. Now, my last work in progress is something I have not shown here before. It's something that's been in the back of my mind as something I wanted to start, and then I just finally did. I just realized that I left the pattern somewhere else, so I'm gonna run and get that, and I'll be right back. I'm back. Okay, I didn't really intend for this episode to turn into me waxing poetic about holding mohair silk with other yarns, but that's kind of how it's coming out. So I cast on a sweater for myself. I had just finished that light ease that I wore in my last episode, and I've got another one to finish, but I just was like itching to start something new. So I did a bunch of swatching and decided to start a simple pullover for myself, holding 2 yarns together. So the first yarn, well, no, I'm gonna show you the sweater first. Nothing about this is what you would expect from me if you know me at all. Oh boy, I kind of have a tingle here. First of all, it's pink. I'm telling you, I don't know what came over me, but maybe it's because I've been seeing all these ads for the Barbie movie that's coming out this summer, and I'm kind of intrigued by it because I actually think it's going to be good. It's a Greta Gerwig film, and it just looks like it's going to be really interesting. I don't know. But this is what I've got. This is a basic top-down raglan sweater, and I am holding, I have got 3 different yarns here. So the first one, this is a single ply superwash merino. I bought this off D-Stash. This is Cloudborn Fibers. Craftsy used to sell it. Craftsy is no more, or they were no more, and now they're back. I don't know. Anyway, they sold off all their stock long ago, and I got this off of a D-Stash, and I didn't look carefully enough because I didn't realize until it arrived that it was going to be single ply. Because I was thinking, oh, you know, a cream fingering weight yarn, that'll be great for a sweater because I want lightweight sweaters. Well, the thing about single ply, especially when it's just superwash merino and there's nothing in there to help strengthen it, like, I don't think this would hold up. It would probably pill like mad. It would probably stretch out. I just, you know, wasn't confident that on its own it would hold up. And since I had a sweater quantity, I didn't, want to use it in smaller projects, or I didn't know how to use it in smaller projects. I wouldn't use it in color work. Like, I don't know, it was just kind of sitting there for a while with me, not sure what to do. And then I realized that since this is like a very pale neutral color, this would work really well holding with mohair silk, which I've been into lately. So I went digging through what I had, and I had to swatch to see how this would work, but I have Knit Picks Aloft again. This is not an ad for Knit Picks. I don't actually buy stuff from there very often. I have sock yarn, and this stuff basically is what I've used. And if I need a large amount for a sweater, my dad's sweater last year, I used Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, but I honestly don't shop there that often. But anyway, I have this in the color Mirth, which I'm gonna say this is not pink. This is magenta. This is magenta more than pink. They do have a fuchsia color, and I think this is not really pink. But anyway, I have 2 skeins of this, so it's just over 500 yards total. And then I have this from Republica Unicornia. And I've talked about her stuff before because I have some of it stashed away for my nieces. And I used some of her mohair silk as a lining for a Poca Poca hat that I made last fall. And I don't remember what this colorway is. It's either something like Unicorn Birthday Party or Unicorn Smoothie. Anyway, there is no denying this is pink. I mean, there are other colors in it. If you look real close, you can see there's some yellow. There's a little bit of aqua and teal situation happening, and there's splotches and variegations and stuff. But for the most part, this is pink. Undeniably. But I still like it. Maybe it's because I like, that business so much. I like Kathleen a lot. Anyway, there's 456 yards in a 50 gram skein of this, and then I have just over 500 yards of this. And so I figured that would be just enough to eke out a sweater if I held it alongside a fingering weight yarn so that I could get a DK weight gauge. So that is what I'm doing. And the pattern I've chosen is from Moon and Turtle. There are a zillion basic top-down DK weight raglans out there, and I was looking through Ravelry thinking I might purchase one, and came across this one and realized there's no reason for me to buy a pattern when I have something just exactly what I'm looking for in a book already. So the pattern is called Kinsan? I don't know exactly how to say it. But the cool thing about it, they don't use the mohair silk or anything. They use something totally different. But the cool thing about it is that they have many iterations of it. Different sizes, obviously, and they show it on different genders. But they also have different sleeve lengths and stuff, and different stripe sequences, which I think is really cool. So it just helps you envision different ways that you can do color combinations. I'm going to see if I can find more pictures. And just, different ways of combining colors and stripe widths to make a sweater. They even have, I don't want to give too much away, but they have a chart that shows all kinds of different color combinations. So I don't want to give it away, but you can see the pictures there that show a couple of possibilities. So I decided for this sweater, for the hand-dyed yarn, which I wanted to alternate with something plain anyway, because I don't want pooling or anything, which totally would happen, I think, because there is so much variegation in here. So what I'm doing for the stripe sequence is 6 rounds of the hand-dyed in a wider stripe, and then I do 2 of the magenta, 2 of the hand-dyed, 2 magenta, 2 hand-dyed, 2 magenta. So it's 6 rounds just of one, and then this little sequence is 10. So the entire repeat is 16 rounds. 10 of which are the hand dyed and 6 of which are this. So 10 out of 16 is more than half. In other words, if I'm playing fast, if I'm playing it risky with yardage in terms of how much I will have, more than 50% of the stripe sequence is using this yarn, which means I'm going to run out of it faster. But I have a plan. So I am hoping that it lasts through the main body of the sweater and the sleeves. And my plan, this is what I have left of the first skein of this magenta color, which is quite a bit. My plan is to use this and only this for the collar, for the sleeve cuffs, and for the entire ribbing section at the bottom of the sweater. So I'm hoping that proportion-wise, it works out so that I have enough of everything. If I don't, if I'm in danger of running out of this, and I've been weighing it recently as I go, just to make sure I don't run out at a really awkward place, then I can kind of fade into using more of this like at the bottom of the sweater and the bottom of the sleeves. I'm okay with that because this is already pretty riotous color-wise, at least for me. If I run out of both of them, I could find a color that picks up one of the other colors that's in this variegated yarn and use that for the cuffs or something. Like, I think like this aqua color would look fine, or I could even probably get a white skein, although I don't know the white cuffs are a good idea because I'm kind of a messy person. But anyway, I'm surprising myself with this one, but I am loving every minute. It is engaging to do the stripes. It is fun to change the colors and see how it comes out. Because I am holding colored yarn with this plain white yarn, it's kind of got this marled effect anyway. And the fabric is really, really soft and light, and I expect it will be very warm. I may not want to wear it when I finish it because it is the end of April and ostensibly it will be getting warmer here pretty soon, but I don't care. I'm really, really happy with it so far. So that is my work in progress. And I knit like exclusively on this for about a week before I got going on those socks for my dad. So I'll be coming back to this very soon. So that is it for the knitting today, but I do have a couple of other things to talk about. The first is that I finally have a sewing project going. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and I just haven't had the brain space because I've had too much other stuff going on. I've had a lot of piano stuff happening lately, and it's just been hard to juggle it all. So anyway, let me grab it. So when it comes to sewing, I really need to have easy projects. I like the idea, hypothetically, of doing things that are more complicated, you know, collared shirts for myself, or, you know, maybe a tailored pair of pants or something. But realistically, that's not going to happen. Not anytime soon, because I don't have the brain space and I don't have the time. I need like long chunks of time where I can just concentrate on that. And I don't have that. So easy projects are the way to go. And I'm especially motivated if there is something that somebody needs or that I really want to make for someone. Now, my daughter, I asked her if she would like me to make her a pair of pajama pants because I had made a pair for my son for his Christmas present. And she said yes. And this was months ago, and she's been very patiently waiting. And I finally got started. So what I have to show you of the progress I've made so far is a serged pocket, because these pajama pants will have pockets. But they do have sheep on them, which I think is very cute, and I'm very excited about that. This is just a flannel I bought at Blue Bar Quilts, which is our local quilt shop that I love. I just love them. They're great. A great store, and Gail, the owner, is just a really, really amazing person. So the pattern I'm using, I actually bought the paper copy because I hate printing out and taping together PDFs. The pattern I'm using is the Luna Pants by Ray Hoekstra. I actually bought the digital version of this, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, and I made a pair for myself, and I cannot find my digital copy, which is really annoying. But when I saw on her website that she had paper copies available, I thought, you know what, I'd rather have that anyway. So I just bought it and had it shipped. So the Luna Pants, these are not meant as pajama pants, but I don't see why you couldn't use them that way. Because, I mean, they're very, very simple. There's an elastic waist. They do have pockets. You can see they're very loose fitting. And she has these elastic cuffs. My daughter cannot stand anything tight around her ankles, but I will just hem them up at the bottom instead of putting the elastic in. And I think they'll just be nice, kind of comfortable, wide leg pants. And if I make them out of flannel, then they'll be pajama pants. So that's easy. So I got the pattern. I finally traced it. My daughter is a different size than I am, so I took her measurements and, you know, traced out the right size. And I think once I finally sit down and get to sewing them, it will not take long at all. I mean, pants like this are really, really basic. The hardest thing is the fit. So assuming this size works, and I have to sew up an entire pair and have her try them on and make sure they fit, but assuming that works, I've got fabric to make 2 more pairs for her. I actually went out and got fabric yesterday. So she decided that she would really like plaid, which, I mean, who doesn't like plaid for pajama pants? So first I went to Blue Bar, and they have a beautiful fabric selection, but their flannel section is pretty limited, and they did not have any plaid in the flannel section. So then I went to Joann's, and I got this big sort of large scale check in different blues. And I got this gray, very subtle kind of, is it houndstooth? I'm not sure, but I really like these kind of rainbow colored stripes. So I'm really looking forward to making these for her. This is a nice thick flannel. I think it will be very comfortable and soft and warm. And I know we're getting into the season where she's not going to need flannel pajama pants, but you know, assuming she's 15, so she's probably not going to grow a whole lot between now and next winter. And yeah, she can wear them. But she really liked these fabrics, so I picked out the right thing. So I'm really looking forward to that. I have a couple other fabrics that I would like to do the same thing for myself. I'll have to trace my size, but I'm gonna use the same pattern. But I'm looking forward to that because I need pajama pants too. I've been limping along on some cheap ones from Target that are not very warm, and I want something warm with nice pockets. So that's it for the making. I actually wanted to just spend a couple minutes talking about a couple of books. I don't always talk about books. Sometimes it's hard to have something interesting to say, but I've read a couple of really good ones recently, so I thought I would just chat about them here. The first one is a recommendation that my son made, actually. He read this. This is called The Road. This is his copy. It's by Cormac McCarthy. I think he read a different Cormac McCarthy book for school, and I can't remember which one it was now. But then he read this, and he kept talking about it, and he kept asking me if I'd read it, and I finally said, well, let me read it. I'll borrow your copy. And I had not read Cormac McCarthy before. I've seen the movie No Country for Old Men, and it's pretty dark, but I hadn't read anything of his. This was dark. This book is bleak. Oh my goodness. But it totally sucks you in. It's so good. Basically, it's like post-apocalyptic. You don't know what has happened. You don't know exactly when, but something terrible has happened. And like, it takes place in the United States, and it's after something horrible. Like, everything is burnt. Nothing can grow. All the vegetation is dead. There's no order anywhere. And it's just this guy and his son who are trying to survive and travel south to get where it's warmer. And they're following the road, basically. So they are scavenging for supplies. They're camping out in the open. They avoid people that they encounter because you can't trust anybody. And it's just, horrifying. And despite all that, I have to say, I recommend this book. If you have the fortitude to make it through something that is really quite dark and quite bleak, but it's just, you just feel something for the relationship that this guy has with his son as they're on this journey, and their determination to survive no matter what. Like, they don't give up. It's just incredible. It makes you think a lot about like what sustains the human spirit, like what motivates us to keep going no matter what. And I think that's an important thing to think about in these times. Humanity has seen a lot of dark times, and I think we're in kind of a scary time now, but I don't know. This one kind of stays with you, so I wanted to mention it. And I don't know if this is along the same lines or not, but I just today actually started reading Into the Wild, and I'm already halfway through. You can't put it down. I can't put it down. I kind of wish I was reading it right now instead of filming a video, but I'll be reading this as soon as I'm done, I think, but I wanted to make a video, so that's what I'm doing. So what got me going on this, I have seen the movie, although I think I saw the movie not long after it came out, and it came out in the early 2000s, maybe 2004. So it's been a while, and I don't really remember much about it, except that I thought it was a good movie. But the podcast You're Wrong About, hosted by Sarah Marshall, and in this particular episode, co-hosted by Blair Braverman, I think, they talked about Chris McCandless, who is the subject of this book. He was, in the early 90s, he was a young man who hitchhiked his way to Alaska and wanted to survive out there, and unfortunately did not. He did make it for about 4 months, but something happened. I think there was a time where they were trying to sort out exactly what went wrong, but he may have eaten something poisonous without realizing it and essentially starved to death. But in that episode, they spent a lot of time talking about this book, Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer, which is about him and about other people that have had that urge to go out into the wilderness alone, and like what drives that, and like, the people that Chris McCandless met along the way and the kind of person he was. And it's riveting, and it's so good. And you feel so much empathy for this young man who, even though he only lived for 24 years, lived this whole life, had this full life, and lived with more conviction than, honestly, most of us have in the years that we have. So highly recommend. This book has been out for almost 30 years now, so chances are you've heard of it, but if you haven't read it, I recommend it. The only other book I've read by Jon Krakauer is Into Thin Air, which is about very ill-fated ascent of Mount Everest. Was that in 1996, I think? That one is also riveting and also very sad, but yeah. Good stuff. I'm going to read some more of his books. I tried to read the one about Mormons called Under the Banner of Heaven, and I for some reason I couldn't get into that one, but I know some people really love it. So to each their own, I suppose. Anyway, that's what I have today. As you can see, it's starting to get a little dark behind me, and I should probably read my book and do a little housework and take care of some other stuff. So that's all I've got, and I will see you next time.